Hi, welcome to episode 220 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I sell my handspun yarns on Etsy in a shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Sunday, March 3rd. It is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I hope that you are having a lovely weekend. It is actually sunny out today, but it is super cold. It's in the single digits. And we got a couple inches of snow again last night, and they only just plowed the roads. So it has been kind of a pajama day where we've been hanging out around the house. And I actually love that. I'm a total homebody, and I would be just as happy to get up in the morning and shower and put on a fresh pair of sweats or pajamas and hang out and craft the day at home. So that is pretty much what I've been up to. And I might have snuck a little nap in there, but yeah, just hanging out and relaxing and preparing for the upcoming week. So, nothing super exciting to report for this week, just lots of crafting happening. So let's jump right in. Today I am drinking Lemon Drop Black from Tea Runners. I was actually looking for, I have a lemon pound cake from David's Tea, but I came upon this one first. And since lemon was kind of what I was looking for, I decided to go with that. I have drunk this one before. It is organic black tea, lemon peel, lemon verbena, and natural flavoring. And I am drinking this in a beautiful knitting mug sent to me by a lovely friend. And so it is just some nice lemon black tea in the afternoon. It is just really nice and light. I did brew this tea kind of strong. So it is a black tea, but the lemon flavor is nice and light. And I added just a touch of sweetener. I love lemon tea that way. So it's like a little sweet and lemony and a little dessert-like, and it is perfect. So let's talk about the knits. I have 3 knits on the needles. I either showed you or talked to you about them all last week, so let's talk about it. The first knit is a new one. I showed you the yarns last week, and the yarns that I am using are Gobi from Bijou Basin Ranch. I have them for review. And here are the tags. They are 65% silk and 35% camel, which is just a lovely, luscious blend. The yarn is absolutely gorgeous. It is the Gobi base, and Bijou Basin Ranch is a ranch in Colorado, and they actually ranch quite a few of the fibers. I don't know that they have camels. I know that they definitely have yaks, and so they ranch their own yak fiber. It is a fingering weight yarn, 3.5 ounces, 435 yards. And the colorways that I have are Eyre and Asgard. And as I said last week, I showed you that I was going to knit, well, let me show you the yarns. This is Eyre. It is a dark purple. And then Asgard, which is kind of a greeny, peachy with hints of orange and pink and purple, and the purple matches. So they go very nicely together. I decided to do the shawl The Drifter by Tammy Gore, and I am really enjoying it. The only thing that I found is that in some areas my colors feel kind of close to one another. So I think if I were to knit it again, and this is definitely not a fault of the pattern, this is the colors that I picked, I think I would almost like a little bit more of a dramatic shift in colors so that they interplay together differently. But this is what I have so far. So it is one of those asymmetrical triangle shawls, and you start out with a nice section, and then you start working the color in. And actually, now that I'm looking at it on camera, it doesn't look as close as it did when I was sitting doing it. When I was working on the first section with the purple as the dark and the lighter color underneath, based on the texture, I couldn't decide if I liked it or if it was enough contrast. But now that it's here, it actually shows up quite well. So I guess I've changed my mind. I guess I do like it. So the shawl is divided into a bunch of sections, just in terms of directions to knit. And I believe I just finished section 4, so I still have a ways to go, but I'm really enjoying this knit. I've been breaking down the sections. The first one was the longest one with the purple, and that took me a few days to knit. But otherwise, I've just been doing like a section in the evening because like I think the last section was maybe 16 rows. So I just did that in one evening. Anyway, so that is what I'm doing. I'm hoping that this will be finished. I don't think it will be finished by next week. But I'm hoping it will be, I know it needs to be finished by the end of the month, but I'm hoping maybe it'll be finished by the third week of the month, because it feels like I've worked up a decent chunk. The pattern does call, well, so the pattern, the Drifter, is written, you can either do it with a main color and then some mini skeins or a bunch of colors, or there is a 2-color version. They are all written within the same pattern, so if you purchase the pattern, you get both, like the one with all the minis or 3 colors or however you want to do it, and then the one that's the 2-color version. So that is what I am working through and what I have so far. So I'm really, really enjoying the yarn. The yarn is absolutely gorgeous to work with. It feels great. It is just the tiniest bit splitty. That sometimes does happen with very fine luxury fibers like the camel, because what we're working with is like the camel down, which is very short stapled and very soft and kind of the undercoating. And so the yarn's just a little bit splitty. I do have to watch that I don't split that, but it is so soft and lovely. And these colors aren't quite my mom's colors, but I'm thinking maybe I might give it to her for Mother's Day, because it will be a nice, lovely, luxurious shawl, and I was thinking she might enjoy that. So the yarn was sent to me free for review by Bijou Basin, and they are a lovely company. I have used their products before. I have purchased their products multiple times before. This was a new to me base that I had not tried, and it is lovely, as are the rest of their selections. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. That's one of the things that I am working on, and so yeah. So I will bring that back next week to show you, hopefully much further along, but I am pleased with my progress for that first week. The second pattern that I showed you last week, although there's something a little new about it, I showed you some socks that I was knitting, and I was using Marceline Smith Hey Brownberry's pattern called Pebbles and Pathways socks. And I got fairly far into the sock this week, but it was one of those things that I kept judging and second guessing myself on. So I was knitting it in that handspun of mine, and the handspun was kind of working up at a weird gauge. I was ending up with a very, very skinny sock, and I wasn't sure if I should go back and rip and knit it larger. And then I started to put in the gusset for the heel and realized I put in the gusset for the heel too early. And then, I don't know, I think it was, and this was, again, not the pattern, this was totally me. I think my handspun was a little bit weird, and I just don't think that I liked the product that I was getting with it. And, you know, I was like, I could rip this sock, but I didn't really want to start over again. And ultimately, I just decided that I really wanted the socks, and I didn't want them in that yarn. So I have something, same pattern, totally different sock to show you. I went into the stash box that was closest to me, and this yarn screamed at me, and I wish I could tell you what it is, but I lost the tag. So it is this bright, springy yellow-green, and I think I am craving a springy sock. And as we talked about, I was okay with my handspun in the pattern, but I think I just decided that I wanted to use something more semi-solid for this pattern to show it off better. I can tell you that this is, it is a fingering weight yarn. It is a wool. It's a little bit rustic. I don't think it has any nylon in it, which is okay for me. I don't mind that on my socks. And I do know where I got it. I got it at the second friendliest yarn shop in Kansas. And I call it that because there is a billboard partway through Kansas that advertised that shop, although now it is closed. So now I really can't figure out what I got. It was called Yarn Sold and Told, and it was in Salina, Kansas, and they advertised themselves as the second friendliest yarn shop in Kansas. And I don't know what that makes the first friendliest shop, but that was how they advertised. And what I do remember is that this is a semi-local dyed skein. What that means is I remember Gosh, I even remember being in the store and standing at the rack where I picked out this skein, and it was a Midwest dyed skein. So, like, for some reason, Wisconsin is coming to mind, but I don't know that that's it. It was not a Kansas dyed skein, but it was like something from not too far away in Kansas. So, I mean, Wisconsin actually is far away, but I just honestly, I don't know where it came from or what it is, and it's super springy and beautiful, and I'm loving it. So unfortunately I can't tell you how to get it because, like I said, the tag is gone, and this almost never happens to me. And this is also a good reason why you should record your stash on Ravelry, because if I had taken a photo of this skein and uploaded it to Ravelry ages ago when I bought it, because it's got to be 3-4 years ago now when I bought it, I would be able to tell you, but I can't. I know that I did buy it on one of our vacations to Colorado in the last couple of years, because we were driving across Kansas and I was like, hey, let's stop there, and it happened to be a day that we could stop. So enough yammering on. This is a bright springy green, and this is my new sock, and I could not be more pleased with it. Like I said, this is a bright springy semi-solid green. I love that there's a little bit of variation, which gives it a little depth and texture. And again, these are the Pebbles and Pathway socks by Marceline Smith, who is Hello Bradbury. And by next week, I will have a finished sock for you. I wound this yarn up yesterday and got through this big chunk of sock probably in just a couple hours, and really enjoyed knitting it. Can't wait to knit the next repeat, and that is the attention that I want to give this pattern, not worrying about where I am and should I rip it and is it going to be big enough, and yeah. So the other thing is that on the handspun, because of the gauge I was getting, I did a really small size sock, and the way she instructs you to adjust for different sizes is to remove stitches from this section, and so my cables were very close together on the last sock, and so I like that I have more stitches in this section because I'm knitting at more of a standard gauge for me. I'm using US zeros, and I believe the sock calls for 64 stitches to start, or it is written for a 64 stitch sock. I am knitting on 60 stitches and made arrangements appropriately. But so that is what I'm working on, and I really love it, and I am much happier with it. So, and like I said, I wanted to give this pattern the attention it deserves, and and knitting should be fun. Like, if you're not having fun, then something's wrong and you need to figure it out. And maybe it's the pattern, maybe it's the yarn, maybe it's the combo of the two, and figure it out so that whatever you're knitting makes you happy. So that makes me happy. The third project looks quite a bit like something else you've seen me knit recently, because I just keep rotating through them. So the third knit is a wrapped in brioche shawl. I told you that my sister fell in love with the last one that I did, and I had been working from sock blanks and was instructed to only use half the sock blank for the sample knit. And so I had the other half of the sock blank left because she did not want them back, and my sister loved the shawl, and so I said, hey, you have a birthday coming up, I will work on one for you. And I did get a lot of work done this week because I just started this last week, and I can't even remember if I think I had like this much to show you. I have this much to show you. Again, you have seen this one before. These are the Luxe blanks from Zen Yarn Garden. In the one on this side is called Luminous, and the one on this side is called Woodlands. And it looks a little bit different because I started at a slightly different place in the sock blank. I basically started where I left off, and I did not bother to wind it to make it look like the last one. So even though it is the same yarn and the same shawl, it will look slightly different because of the particular sections of the hand-dyed yarn blanks. And I still have plenty of yarn blank. I don't know if I'll use the whole thing up for my sister. I actually had, I think, about 2/3 left, and it might get crazy big, and I don't know if she likes shawls like I do, like huge shawls. So this is what I've got, and now I'm going into this brown and green section, and I'm going into the yellow and black section, which was kind of where I started on the last one. So this one's just going to be a little bit reversed, and I sort of would love to get to the end to get back into this bright green and back into the purple because I love that combination, but I just don't know if I'll go all the way or not. we'll see how big it gets. And like I said, brioche always grows quite a bit. So that was the reason that I was only supposed to use part of the skeins anyway, because these are oversized sock blanks. They're 150 grams, 700 yards. So the concern was that if I had knit, like if I knit all of this, it will be a 150 gram shawl, and it's brioche, and brioche stretches like nobody's business and grows in the blocking. So I don't know, but I am pleased with my progress here. And so this month is kind of the month of shawls and socks. I have 2 more samples that are coming into knit. One is probably due in April and one is due in May, and I am waiting on them. They are both sweaters. One I can show you, one I cannot. That is why I have not cast on a lot more, because I do have a million things that I want to cast on. I did cast on a hat the other day. It is called the January Hat by Courtney Kelly. Kelburn Woolens has decided to design hats for a hat club this year. They just released their Germantown yarn late last year, which is a superwash worsted weight yarn. And in honor of that, they are doing a hat collection. And so they're releasing a hat pattern every month, and January and February are out now. And they are free patterns, so that's kind of exciting. I have like about an inch of the ribbing on it. I am knitting it in blue Patons wool. I didn't bring it today because it's over there. It's at my desk. It's kind of my conference call project, or like waiting for something to load project, or you know, those kinds of things. I will bring it next week. My hope is I have a bunch of meetings this week, and meetings where it's mostly with my internal coworkers, so I can knit at them. And my hope is that this week I will knock out more of that hat. I think I'm looking for like a quick sort of instant gratification knit, and I also wanted to knit a couple hats for Lion Brand's Hat Not Hate. I already knit one for that campaign this past year. Lion Brand is collecting hats for a group that is anti-bullying, and they aim to provide blue hats to as many kids as they can for I believe there is like a worldwide anti-bullying day, and I want to say this past year it was in October sometime. Anyway, but if you just Google Hat Not Hate, I will also put a link to it in the show notes. If you're looking for, you know, just to do some good, I just figured I had a few skeins. So I went through my closet this weekend, and I pulled out a bunch of skeins of wool acrylic and superwash wool, and you know, skeins that I usually use for hats or charity projects, like they're easy care skeins, and I just put them in a bin next to my desk. I also pulled out a bunch of the cotton that I have so that I can do some washcloths. So I put all those next to my desk so that now I can just reach in and pick up some yarn and start a project if I need something at my desk. So I think that's what I'm going to work on for this year, and I will bring you that hat to show you next week. Other things that I have been thinking about, hats and mittens for the kids. I have some review yarn to do some fingerless mitts with. I still have my night shift, the shawl by Andrea Mowry in Handspun. That is the next big project that I will cast on before, but I have a few more things to get through before that. Like I said, I've taken on some sample knitting. And the other thing that is coming up, and I can't say too much about it because we're still working out the details, is I'm going to be teaming up with another podcaster for a spring knit along. And basically it's going to be something about spring garments. So think spring sweaters, spring shawls, spring dresses. It will include a variety of crafts, knitting, crocheting, sewing. And so we are going to be starting that very soon because we're going to start it at the spring equinox and run it until summer. So that is coming up. Like I said, I don't have a lot of the details about that, but if there is a summer top that you are dying to knit, or a spring shawl, or just something kind of fun and light and would add to your wardrobe, and you've been thinking about it, that will be the time to do it. There will be prizes. It will be fun. And I'm thinking about whips are going to be okay. I am thinking about picking up my boxy since it will be a lightweight sweater, and I would love to have it in my wardrobe. So start thinking about that, and I will have more information for you next week. And then we will cast on, I believe the spring equinox is on March 20th. So that is coming up fairly soon. So start thinking spring. That brings me to the end of knitting content. So sip of tea, and then we'll go on to the spinning content. Spinning this week has been a challenge. If you remember, I showed you a braid last week that was purples and yellows and browns, and it was from Apothecary Fabrications, and I still have the tag here. It was a 4-ounce braid. It had no name because she does not name hers. I called it begonias. A bunch of you, well, someone said they look like Johnny Jump Ups, which they do, and I figured out what I was really looking for was pansies. So I think I've tentatively called it pansy. I had been intending this for the shop, but it will not be in the shop because it is not good enough to go in the shop. So the braid, like I said, was purples and yellows and browns. And as I told you last week, I was a little bit afraid that the colors would mix and turn super muddy because of that brown in there and the yellow. And so I decided that I was going to split the braid down the middle vertically, so I would have 2 equal halves, and then I was going to spin them straight through so I would have long color runs, and then I was going to chain ply them so that hopefully I would have 2 identical skeins of chain ply yarn. The spinning of the singles went beautifully, and I added just a tiny little bit of this red fiber that I had on the side to sort of mark use as demarcation between the 2 skeins, you know, the 2 halves, so that when I went through and plied it up, I could just cut right in that area, that red yarn, that little bit of red right there, and then I would have 2 equal skeins. That is presuming, of course, that I divided the braid equally and that I spun the halves equally. I did okay at that. I ended up with 2 skeins, and they came out nicely in the sense that I avoided all that muddying of things. So they are stripy, and the skeins are sort of close to equal. I actually haven't weighed them yet. I will say that I probably have 15 to 20 more yards in one skein rather than the other, which probably is a combination of both that I did not weigh, I just kind of visually did it, and also that I may have spun differently on the different halves since they were spun at different times during the week. The biggest thing that I learned is that I am not great at chain ply. And I am really not great at chain ply, particularly when my singles are thin. And my singles on this are very varied, and I think I don't notice the variation in my singles as much when I 2-ply, because I'm 2-plying vastly different parts of the skein, whereas in chain ply, you're plying the yarn basically on itself in short color runs. So for instance, if you spin a section slightly thicker, you are plying it on itself, and so it's really going to be that 3 times that thicker bit, and so I have a lot of thick and thin spots. If you look in this, oops, sorry, my knee hit the camera. If you look in this section, I have a lot of really kind of thick spots right here, and then if you look up here, I have like this in particular. This one is a super thin one compared to one of these down here, where these are all much thicker. So I have some thick and thin issues. The other issue is that I have a few blips in the skein, and even starting and stopping didn't help. The one that I saw as I started winding the skeins that made me think that this is not going in the shop was this one right here. And as you can see, I have an extra blip of yarn in here. Basically what happened is as I was plying, I didn't pull tight enough. And so I have an extra loop of yarn here that curled on itself because it was tightly tensioned. So now I have like a little thing sticking out of my yarn. So these skeins are not going to go in the shop. I will probably knit something up with them at some point because I can hide some of those things as I knit them. I can, you know, tuck them behind or snip them or do whatever I want to do. So these might be some fingerless mitts or a cowl or something later on. I'm not exactly sure what I will do with them. And they have not been soaked yet, so I don't know the exact yardage. But like I said, when I wrapped, I had a difference of about 10 or 12 wraps in between the skeins. Multiply that by 2 yards, plus a little bit of shrinkage. That's going to give me 10 to 15 yards difference in the skeins, which actually probably is significant, particularly if you're knitting arm warmers, because that means that it's going to take that much longer to go through. So they also will not match exactly. So, a lesson for spinning, a little bit of frustration, and something I should probably do again if I want to get better at it. And I haven't decided if I want to get better at it or not. These braids don't come along very often where I feel like this is the treatment that I have to give them. And I really, really like doing 2-ply barber pole with lots of color. And so maybe that's just my thing. So I haven't decided what to do, but that was the spin for this week. And like I said, it will not go in the shop, but it is done. And, I'm okay with it. I knew this was not my forte going in. I had hoped for slightly better results, but it looks like yarn, and I probably will be able to knit something out of these. So, I'll figure it out, or maybe I'll do socks. I don't know. Because I should have about... Well, on the small skein, I should have like 160 yards. So I could do some, and these are probably closer to, well, not all of it, but it's probably closer to a DK worsted when I wash it and it plumps up. So it could be socks, it could be arm warmers, it could be any number of things. And I am happy that I chose this, because otherwise I do feel like the colorway would have gotten completely muddied, and then I would have hated it. So I don't hate it. I just wish it were better. So there you go. This next spin is something that I've been wanting to do for a while for myself. And I didn't realize I'd end up doing 2 weeks in a row where I wasn't putting anything in the shop. But I already kind of picked it, and I'm settled in and I'm excited about it, so I'm just going to do it anyway. And I realized that this is another one of my Ply-Away purchases from last year, and Ply-Away is coming up of April this year. So I won't say I've used up everything I got at Ply-Away last year. In fact, I didn't get it last year. I was going to say 2 Ply-Aways ago, I got a huge sweater quantity of yarn that I have not used yet. But I have used quite a bit of the yarn that I got last year, so I'm kind of pleased by that. But this is fiber. I saw someone at Ply-Away, it was either last year or the year before. It might have been the year before when I took a class with Maggie Casey on spinning, who had a really beautiful natural shawl. And in general, I like bright jewel tones, and so I don't usually go for natural colors. But she had this beautiful kind of simple lace shawl in a naturally spun wool, and of course she spun it herself. And I looked at that and I was like, I want to do something like that. So when I walked through the marketplace, I was on the hunt for some natural fiber, and what I found is Ross Farm, and I love Ross Farm. That's actually who the sweater quantity is from. And this is their natural Shetland, and it's in this really beautiful, I guess you probably can't tell. Let me pull a little bit out of the top of the bag, because they always leave just a little bit of it out so you can, but I'm going to undo this. Sorry for the crinkling. This is it's Sliver, I guess, probably, or Dizzed Roving. It's probably not combed top, and it is just this beautiful silvery gray. It almost looks white in there, but it's actually a silvery gray. And so my thinking is that I'm going to spin this as thin as I possibly can. This is roughly 2 ounces, and I have 2 more bags, so I have 6 ounces. Which should give me about, the way I spin, between 6 and 700 yards probably if I spin super thin. And I'm going to 2-ply it and hope for fingering to lace weight. Well, I won't get lace weight, but hope for fingering weight. And then knit myself a natural shawl. And I have a few contenders. The shawl that I really want to knit is supposed to be done in heavier weight yarn and calls for closer to 800 yards, and I don't think I'll get that out of 6 ounces. That's just not, I'm really kind of at a 400 yards for 4 ounces kind of place, or 380 for 400. 380 yards in 4 ounces. So, but I will go pattern shopping after I spin it, especially since I already have a list full of other things to knit. But on my list this year is probably kind of a natural shawl in yarn that I have spun. So I think that's it for this week, good or bad. The knitted objects you will definitely see again next week and probably the week after that. The spin, hopefully I'll get through it this week. 6 ounces is more than I usually do in a week, but you know, I might get there. If we have more snow days, I really might get there. Anyway, that is what I have to share with you today. I hope that you have had a lovely week. Come back next week and I will definitely talk about the make-along, and we can start thinking about what we want to make along for it. Like I said, I think I'm going to pick up my boxy for that, and I don't know if I will have time for something else, but I might. There will be prizes. So I hope you have a lovely week, and until I see you again, I will say as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!